Labor bridging activities are very important to us as students as it equips us and prepares us for the working world. This is where theory meets practical. For example, I visited a hydroponic farm where I got first-hand experience in how the system is being set up. We also learned a lot about plant care and new agricultural technologies that are being used in agriculture today.
When we talk about sustainable agriculture, you can see the setup is extremely sustainable. In a damaging environment, it's a way how you can counter a lot of the issues that are happening around, but at the same time being very productive. So they get a chance to combine theory and they're seeing the practical at work.
I enjoyed the hydroponic farm tour because I got a chance to widen my knowledge and I got hands-on experience from what I would have learned in class.
Youth in agriculture today is very important. I think they're more adaptable towards our new technology tools that we have to apply to stay productive and stay competitive. In this era of internet, all of this information is at our fingertip. And with the greenhouse hydroponic technology, it allows us to use the new technology tools to increase our productivity and to become better farmers. Most countries became great when they invested in youth and agriculture, and I think we're at a point now where the quintessential image of a farmer with a machete and a fork on his back when a donkey is gone. Farming has become more glamorous. We're looking to protected agriculture, we're looking to more mechanized agriculture, and it's a very rewarding job.
I hope you enjoyed the video highlighting Advance's Spark Day, one of the program's labor bridging activities. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kimberly Bruce, and I am an Advanced Program beneficiary. Welcome to the Advanced Program Learning Forum on preparing students for the workplace, school to work, making stronger connections for youth employability. Joining us from USAID, Washington, and Jamaica, we have Jamie Salazar and Alex Gaino. We're pleased to welcome representatives from Advance's partner institutions, the University of Technology, Jamaica, Council of Community Colleges of Jamaica, and Vocational Training Development Institute. Today, we will discuss and highlight the importance of labor bridging activities. We will have a presentation from the international representative and will conclude with a panel discussion. We will also answer your questions, so don't forget to share them in the chat on Zoom and YouTube. I have mentioned the Advance program quite a few times. Advance is a workforce development program supported by USAID and implemented by FHI 360. In addition to Jamaica, the program is implemented in Honduras, Guatemala, and now the Dominican Republic. Advance was designed to help selected tertiary institutions to provide market-relevant, quality training to disadvantaged youth so that they could access new and better employment. With USAID support, Advance rolled out activities in 5 areas: curriculum strengthening, professional development for faculty and staff, improving access, providing scholarships, and labor bridging to help students to have a stronger school-to-work transition. Our topic for this evening's forum. Recently, the program included positive youth development activities, including social-emotional learning training with teachers along with strengthening career guidance. To learn more about Advance, please visit the program's website at www.advanceprogram.org and social media pages. The handles will be displayed on screen throughout the program. Ladies and gentlemen, I will now welcome Ms. Alex Gaynor, Acting Country Representative at USAID Jamaica, to deliver greetings.
Greetings, everyone. I'm Alex Gaynor, Acting Country Representative for USAID Jamaica. It is an honor to bring you greetings on behalf of the U.S. government at the third hosting of the Advanced Program Learning Forum that was designed to create new or better employment opportunities for disadvantaged youth. The youth today are tomorrow's future for Jamaica, and that's why it is imperative to make critical investments now that will help develop well-rounded young people to take on new opportunities in the workforce. At USAID, education and workforce development is a fundamental pillar. The agency's support to the Advance program to help youth become leaders, innovators, entrepreneurs, problem solvers only underscores the importance of this work. Advance connected with selected higher education partners to offer new and improved associate degrees in an effort to help students expand their technical skills, gain essential life skills, improve decision-making, strengthen analytical thinking, communicate effectively, become goal-oriented, and have a positive self-image. And so, with the goal of helping youth to achieve new and better opportunities, Advance also strives to bring teachers, students, and wider school communities to the table with employers to strengthen conversations and build meaningful alliances. On behalf of USAID, I want to thank all the companies and partners for opening their doors for internships or site visits, and to the Advance team for their tireless work that they continue to do for Jamaica's youth. To our panelists and presenters today, thank you, and we look forward to learning and sharing, and we hope that even more stakeholders can gain something from today's forum and build on their own programs. It isn't always easy, but it is possible. Thank you, and do enjoy the forum.
Mr. Gaynor, as Mr. Gaynor mentioned, the goal of the advanced program is to help youth gain new and better employment. The program does this by partnering with tertiary institutions to provide market-relevant training. Additionally, the program works with these institutions to provide labor bridging support. These include World of Work workshops, entrepreneurship training, Sparks Day, and industry seminars. We will now hear from Jamie Salazar, Youth and Workforce Development Specialist with USAID Washington.
Training and skills they can use in the workforce. Sorry, I think nobody can hear me.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Let me start again. So on behalf of USAID's Latin America and the Caribbean Education Team, I want to thank USAID Jamaica, Advanced Program staff, and local partners for their support and participation in this learning forum. USAID believes that education is a foundational driver of development. And when youth receive training in the skills they can use in the workforce and to navigate life, they are able to build more hopeful and prosperous futures for themselves, their families, and communities. As part of education and training, youth need to learn about the world of work. What are the opportunities, how are they accessed, and what skills are required to be successful. In the past decade, USAID has made youth employability an important component of its higher education initiatives in Latin America and the Caribbean to support youth in finding new and better employment opportunities. In our experience, we have learned that the most promising technical and vocational skills training programs are combined with soft skills and on-the-job training components. This includes collaboration with the private sector, as it is important to ensure workforce development program success. The strong collaborations with the private sector can help provide youth with job training or internship opportunities, in addition to allow for trainings and curricula to be more appropriately adaptable to the labor market trends. Students will have exposure to in-the-job opportunities and have more of a connection with real-life scenarios. Through our higher education and workforce development programs, many youths have been employed by the companies through which they have had internships. And also tertiary education institutions have been able to develop relationships with the private sector that would not have otherwise been able to do on their own. In addition, we have learned the importance of having meaningful youth engagement as it leads to a more aware and prepared labor force. We often portray youth as a homogeneous group and fail to recognize their complexities. That is why engaging youth to contextualize youth workforce development programming within the social, cultural, and political context is particularly important. Lastly, we need to take into consideration their ages and stages of development as we design interactions and activities at different levels. We also need to consider young people's interactions with their families and peers, communities, and the larger education system. And remember that youth are not one-dimensional, and there is no one-size-fits-all way to work with them. Therefore, we encourage the leadership of our partnership institutions, as well as the private sector industry, to continue the conversation and the relationships born out of the advanced program to strengthen employability opportunities for youth and best practices in the process. These exchanges will support local workforce development programs and respond better to labor market demands. Thank you very much for the opportunity to address you all, and I look forward to hearing more about your local experience and expertise as you transition from school to work. Thank you.
You have just heard from Jamie Salivar, Youth and Workforce Development Specialist with USAID Washington. Earlier, I mentioned some of Advance's labor bridging activities. Let us hear more about these and their impact.
The labor bridging refers to all activities that are used to help students to transition from a student into the world of work. So everything that goes into helping them to bridge the gap between being a student and being an employee. So the major goal of our labor bridging activities is really to ensure that our students are ready to enter the workforce. So we want to give them the skills needed, technical skills as well as non-technical skills, to be able to succeed in the world of work.
These different labor bridging activities, what they do is really give the students an opportunity to learn about the different careers that exist in the different industries. So for example, in the wellness tourism industry, students are able to learn about the wide variety of careers that exist in the industry, as well as the different types of businesses that exist in the industry. A lot of times students really just don't know what the opportunities are. So what these advanced activities have done is broaden the students' minds, broaden their horizons, given them the opportunity to talk to people like myself who are actually working in the industry, so they can ask me questions and I can explain to them the wide variety of opportunities that exist.
Our activities include our industry seminars, which allow students to interact with professionals from various industries. It also includes tours of various local companies, where students are able to get a first-hand view of what it takes to work in these various companies. We also have our entrepreneurship training, which provided students with coaching and training in how to pursue entrepreneurial ventures. We also have tools that are digital, for example, our World of Work e-course, which is a self-paced course where students are prepared to interview and to really enter the world of work. And we also have our employability guide, which provides students with a step-by-step guide on how to gain and to maintain employment.
I can apply, I can now write a resume, write an application, and not be afraid or ashamed to say, Lord, I wonder if somebody will call me, I wonder if somebody consider me. No, I have that confidence. I can even have my own job. So if I don't want to work with somebody, there's no problem with me being my own boss. I can create products too as well, because we've been through that depth of even creating your own products.
Labor bridging activities are, I would say, a critical path for young persons who want to enter the work world. It's very important to have your resume prepared in a professional manner that qualifies you to even be called for an interview.
So one difference that I can see that it made in my life is workforce readiness. With the workshops, I actually had a better understanding of what is needed from me as a person in the working world. So I can say that, for instance, that's one thing that has impacted me. The workshops that were geared towards workforce readiness and helping with the soft skills.
Jobs are changing, jobs are evolving, roles are evolving, and we have to be so much in tune with those jobs. So what I'm seeing is that we're evolving into a workforce where technology is here and going to become even stronger and better, and our people have to understand the technology and how to manipulate and use the technology very efficiently. We're hiring you because of how it is that you're going to be able to use what you've learned in school and to show others that you can make a valuable contribution in the organization. We look for people who are adaptable. Attitude also does count. And the willingness to learn, to grow, to interact with others, to communicate, to admit that you can make mistakes. You are human. So, you know, some of those things, let us see the true you as well as an individual, but the attitude is very important.
Some of the key lessons that we've learned while doing our labor bridging activities are that students need to have additional experience with the industry. So we recognize that students need to have interactions with industry professionals and also be in the various spaces. We have also recognized that students need additional support in developing their soft skills. So having learned those lessons, we have developed certain best practices. So first of all, we recognize that students benefit greatly from interaction with the industry, and so we have been very mindful in helping our students to get internships at various companies in the industry. We have also worked to have students interact with various professionals. So we have had, for example, industry seminars where we have persons from the industry coming in and interacting with students and giving them a rundown of what it's like to be in the industry. We have also recognized that students need additional support in developing their employability skills. And so we have worked with them in areas such as resume writing. We've worked to help them to develop their interview skills and just overall develop employability skills such as their communication and interpersonal skills.
They have changed my life more than how I expected because I didn't have school on my mind again at my age. So yes, they did change my life.
I think I saw a former classmate in that video. Remember to visit the program's website to follow them and their social media pages for updates and announcements. As a student who has benefited from the activities that are geared towards helping students to prepare for the workplace, I believe these activities are important. Let's hear from a few students about their thoughts on these activities. Nisha K shared why she thinks work experience is important.
Work experience has done a lot for me. It has trained me, it has developed my soft skills and my technical skills. It has taught me how to operate in the workforce, how to socialize with people. It has developed my teamwork.
Natasha also thinks it is important. She also shared something very interesting.
I believe students should start getting exposed to the workplace from they are 15 because this helps them to gain independence and develops them into becoming young adults, and they have an idea of how they should operate in the working field.
What do you think about the suggested age? Maybe this will come up in the panel discussion. We also heard from Courtney, Antoinette, Devon, and Katrina.
Work experience allows persons to get a feel of how the world of work is. It also helps them understand the daily operations that are carried out in a company.
I strongly believe that career workshops will help young people to develop themselves professionally in the work field.
Work experience is very important to us as students. Work experience has helped me to develop my skills in technology and IT, and it has also helped me to communicate with persons from different backgrounds.
I believe that schools can continue to support us students with getting us ready for the world of work by continuing to host career days, different workshops, different sessions where professionals come into the schools and really sit down and give us a one-on-one view on what the working world is like. So it's not just about what they do, but we need to know in depth what the different industries come with.
The voices of our students. I will now welcome our presenter, Kristen Brady. Kristen Brady has over 30 years experience in international development as a youth and education expert. She serves as director of FHI 360's primary and higher education group. Welcome, Kristen.
Thank you, Kimberly. It's wonderful to be with you today. I think, let's see if we can get to the slides. Thank you so much. It's great to be with you today. I've been working with the advanced team for the last couple of years, and I'm going to share a brief overview of what the advanced program has been doing. If you could go to the next slide, please. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, I wanted to provide just a really brief snapshot here of the advanced program, our goals, our approach, time frame, and locations. The program has been operating since 2015 in Guatemala, Honduras, Jamaica, and more recently in Dominican Republic. If you go back one, our goal is to ensure that young people, especially those from disadvantaged backgrounds, are able to obtain new or better employment, as we heard earlier, and we do this by supporting higher education institutions to develop or strengthen their technical tertiary education programming, focusing on high growth sectors in each country. Next slide. So labor bridging, today's topic, is just one of the components for institutional strengthening led by the ADVANCE program in partnership with local higher education institutions. ADVANCE also works in curriculum and pedagogy to make sure that education programs are equipping youth with the market relevant knowledge and competencies, staff, faculty, and development to help faculty gain updated knowledge they need to be effective in the classroom, and provide staff with the skills they need to provide wraparound support services for young people, and recruitment and admissions to help institutions identify and admit more students from disadvantaged backgrounds, and finally scholarships, where we ensure that disadvantaged students have the financial support they need to access and persevere in their programs. These 5 components are designed to increase the number of students demonstrating market relevant skills and increase equitable access to tertiary technical education for disadvantaged youth. On this slide, you will see a number of the partner institutions in Jamaica and the Dominican Republic. And I won't read the text on the slide, but I just want to note that ADVANCE has worked with both public and private institutions, with large universities, as well as smaller technical institutions. And in Jamaica, we work with community colleges under the Council for Community Colleges, or CCCJ, as you can see. In the next slide, we'll see similar range of institutions where we've been working in both Guatemala and Honduras, and you'll see the selected technical programs that we've been supporting. We identified those sectors through a labor market assessment so we could really understand where the high growth sectors were in the economy. So for all of us who work in higher education, who work in, study in, or have taken a keen interest in higher education, we know that it is an incredibly complex field to navigate with a range of different and important stakeholder groups, bringing different perspectives, needs, priorities to the table. So as you see here on the slide, we know what employers are looking for: a talented pipeline of workers, that students are looking for those opportunities to prepare them for a productive employment, that parents are interested in higher education, but they're quite concerned about the cost, both opportunity cost as well as financial cost, and that the higher education students are looking to expand their student base and expand their capacities and institutional growth. What ADVANCE has tried to do is really to work in this space to create a shared vision across these different stakeholders and highlight common goals, create a shared vision, break down silos, and really make sure we're all agreed around the benefits of technical tertiary education, like a stronger workforce, economy, higher wages, new investments in some of these sectors, creating graduates with more agency to pursue their career goals, and other benefits. And we're working to really create this kind of meaningful collaboration. And we're really happy about the success, particularly here in Jamaica. It's done an outstanding job, and we're seeing a real paradigm shift in the technical tertiary education space. We see more dialogue, we see a shared vision, we're finding common ground, and all of that has increasingly resulted in improved education and career opportunities for youth. Go to the next slide. We've heard about some of these strategies already, and we'll hear more about it today, but we really break out our labor bridging strategies into 3 categories. The first is to provide students with this career orientation to help them make informed decisions. You heard from Natasha say it should happen at 15. And we do this, we do start working with secondary school students to help them understand the options that are available to them at the post-secondary level. And this is particularly important for marginalized students who may not have considered technical tertiary education as an option, have limited understanding about different careers or options for awareness about scholarship opportunities. In terms of some of the private sector outreach, we heard earlier about industry seminars, internships, and company tours. And then we also are looking to how do we build that alignment between the private sector and higher education. So we're sure that the universities are aligning their curriculum and training with industry needs. So we do that through export advisory boards and other ways to make sure that that private sector engagement, those connections and linkages are there between higher education and employers. And then finally, we're working with the actual higher education institutions themselves, where we're introducing soft skills and work readiness training, helping expand opportunities for entrepreneurship training and coaching, and helping those universities track their graduates so they can really assess how well they're preparing the young people for the needs of the workforce. Next, I want to go into some of the specific countries that we've worked in. In Honduras, we've supported more than 1,100 students through labor bridging services, and that's resulted in almost 50% of the surveyed graduates reporting that they've been employed within 6 months of graduation. One of our primary successes was establishing a model for university private sector collaboration, which was something new in Honduras. And these two sectors were actually working in isolation. And so we were trying to break that isolation and have greater opportunities for collaboration. And through this experience, we were able to develop concrete steps and tools to help generate and facilitate those successful new partnerships. And one simple step in that was really helping each partner understand the mindsets of the other and look for win-win opportunities to have a better chance for sustainability than instead of one-way partnerships, and recognizing that partnerships are mutually beneficial rather than altruistic. Some of the examples of partnerships in Honduras include career fairs, professional orientation, and some of the guided visits we talked about earlier. In Guatemala, we have worked with partner institutions to establish 8 strategic alliances. And similar to Honduras, we've reached about 1,100 students who received labor bridging services through the program. You can hear and see a number of the types of labor bridging activities that we've talked about in some of the other countries, and you'll hear more about today. But I wanted to just highlight 2 specific examples. The first relates to employment fairs, which were done in person early on in the project, and were really a great opportunity for universities to create new relationships with companies that would create a space to generate trust and bonding relationships that could then grow and lay the framework for more ambitious relationships between the private sector and higher education institutions. And then during COVID, those were converted to virtual job fairs, where we helped develop multi-sectoral partnerships for virtual job fair that engaged and connected recruiting firms, employers, and students. And one other example I want to highlight, which is a little bit different in Guatemala, was where one of our partner universities structured a service learning opportunity for scholarship recipients. And this was one of the requirements of the scholarship, that the student contributed back to their community. So that would create, so the way that that was structured was that we had scholars work with secondary students to orient them towards post-secondary education, which provided the scholars with an opportunity to build work readiness skills, presentation skills, at the same time helping orient, motivate, and serve as role models for secondary school students so they could consider some of these options for their own future. If we move on to the Dominican Republic, where, as I mentioned, we're at an earlier stage there, but I want to highlight 2 ways that we're working in labor bridging. The first is how we've been creating employability and soft skills modules that are integrated into orientation courses that all students will take. In some cases, this is done through virtual. So we've got the option of both synchronous and asynchronous virtual training. So every student will be able to access this kind of early employability and work readiness training. And then the other thing we've done is create databases that are geared to every technical sector that Advance is supporting. And those databases provide relevant information about different businesses in that industry so that the career service departments have access to that and can easily access companies and link young people to employers, to internship opportunities, and job placement. And finally, we can move on to Jamaica, which I'm just going to leave this slide here for you, but I think you'll hear more about that today, and you've already heard some of these activities. And with that, I just want to say thank you and look forward to the rest of the session.
Thank you, Kristen. We've reached the segment you have all been waiting for, our panel discussion. I will now hand over to our moderator, Ruth Chisholm. She is the Country Program Director with the Advanced Program.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ruth Chisholm, Country Program Director for Advance, which is USAID-funded workforce development program implemented by EPI, and it is my pleasure to be the moderator of this panel. We are joined by Dr. Donald Powell Wilson from the Council of Community Colleges of Jamaica, Mr. Omario Brown, who is a student of the University of Technology of Jamaica, or just about finished, almost. Dr. Marcia Forbes, CEO of Phase 3, and Ms. Karen Edmonds, who has rounded up our panel here. I want to tell you a little bit about each panelist, and then I'm going to give them a chance to just give me their insights from what they have heard so far, and just from their experience, what they've garnered in terms of what a strong school-to-work transition would look like for the young people. So let's start with Dr. Powell Wilson. Well, her bio actually signals her special interest in math, curriculum and instruction, and educational leadership. I struggled with math. Bless you. Good for you. She has Doctor of Philosophy in Curriculum and Instruction from Northern Caribbean University. She's been the Executive Director of the Council of Community Colleges since 2014. And under her leadership, there's been a Staff of the Year and Student of the Year award, and she's helped to pilot CCCJ's first online learning project. So thank you for joining us, Dr. Paul Wilson. Sir Omario Brown, and he's done this very specially. You know, he's communicated his bio from a first-person perspective, so I'm going to share a few of his words, where he says, "I've always had a drive for academic excellence. And being a first-generation male student in the family to do university, I wanted to pave a pathway and create a legacy so that others could follow in my footsteps." He's a proud St. George's College graduate, and he says he's always had a love for giving back and outreach, being a member of the Key Club. So at UTech, he's had several leadership positions. He's also served as public relations chairperson for Generation Technology. And he thinks all these experiences have helped to shape him into the man he is today. So Dr. Forbes, she is a Fulbrighter, a media veteran, and author of 2 research-based media books. I mentioned she is the correct title would be co-founder and co-owner and executive chairperson of Phase 3 Productions. That is the accurate title. This is a 38-year-old company, imagine. And it stands as one of the leading multimedia television production entities in the Anglophone Caribbean. She is also credited for creating Television Jamaica out of the former government-owned JBC TV and spearheading TVJ's growth and development into Jamaica's #1 television station. In addition to all that, she's also served as vice president of the Caribbean Broadcasting Union based in Barbados, and she is on the executive committee of the Commonwealth Broadcasting Association, which is now called the Public Media Alliance, based in the United Kingdom. I have to say she is the immediate past chairperson of the United Way of Jamaica. This is a 35-year-old charitable organization. And it's really important to note that Dr. Forbes was recognized for her service when she received an Order of Distinction Commander Class from the Government of Jamaica for her volunteerism and work in broadcasting. That's just a little bit of Dr. Forbes. Mrs. Karen Wilson Edmonds, she is a management consultant, and I would like to add just extraordinaire at many things. She has a range of expertise in business development, marketing, branding, communications, PR, capacity building, training, and curricular development. She actually worked with some of the member colleges of the Council of Community Colleges to develop the Health and Wellness Tourism Associate Degree program. So she's very near and dear. And her work has included work for projects funded by USAID, the IDB, and in a range of sectors including manufacturing, tourism, consumer products, and financial services. So you see, we brought you some warm and heavy hitters, right? We talked about industry expertise and industry knowledge, and we have someone who can speak to the student perspective in terms of how do we make this work, how do we improve these areas, how do we have a better school-to-work transition. So over to our panelists. Let's start with you, Dr. Paul Wilson. Just your insights, your 2 cents on what a school to work transition looks like. Like what would making a better connection with employers look like from the council's perspective?
Thank you very much, Ruth, for having me today. And the CCCJ is indeed happy to be one of the partners with this project. We have benefited tremendously our students and Study to Work, making stronger connections for youth employability. It is so relevant at this time. The CCCJ, in all our programs, we have implemented, we have designed not just a course, but throughout the program, opportunities. They're so designed so students have the opportunity to be exposed to employability skills, social skills, and so forth. So the school to work transition, it is very important to us in the education curricula. Our learners, they need the exposure. Our employers, they need to help to make our students more rounded. The students, they need that experience. They need to make the classroom come alive, and that will happen in the workplace. So we are really strategic in our programs, that this part is not a second thought, but it is actually a part of the program. We want our students also to develop confidence, and we believe that what will help the students to transition from the classroom to the workplace is building their self-confidence. So they know that they have not just the knowledge, but they have the skills, right, to take them into the work of world, whether this is going to be their own jobs they're going to create, or they're going to be working for someone. The building of relationships. We see the transition from school to work also enhancing that relation building between learners and employers. That is where they start the networking, okay, which will help them a little later on. And of course, the meaningful experience. Yes, we recognize that, and it's a very topical issue, that they need to be paid or given a stipend. Some internship programs, they have that component, but it is also more than just the stipend. What they can learn on the job from other co-workers there, it is just tremendous. So for that, we value the transition from school to the workplace.
And over to you, Mr. Omario Brown. Let's hear your thoughts.
All right. I'm really glad that you actually touched on the aspect of being a more rounded student. So I've always thought that the advanced program, they had the right formula in actually getting students out there. So, and it was not just only the workshops and getting to know the different entities. You guys really worked on the soft skills, and I think that as a university student, a lot of colleges and universities, they don't really touch on the soft skill aspect. So the soft skill coupled with the theory and actually getting to network, as you said before, with the different entities that actually impacted me as a student. And even so, everything that I've actually learned from the workshop, I actually poured it into my academic life. So I did become more confident in how I felt my presentations. I got A's for all my presentations. I felt more confident in how I would present myself and how to basically market myself to these different entities. And even so, the workshops are great and everything, but internships, I think internships are the best thing for students. And I think that more universities should partner with other entities to be that middle ground, because you have the academics and then you have the work, and then there isn't any middle ground to help students transition into actually getting that experience that they need. So I think that in that instance, having programs that would help to tackle and impact students' life to bridge that gap so they can actually get into the workforce and actually know what to do and have that knowledge. That's really my take on it. But I have more to say, but...
Absolutely. We are going to come back to you, I promise
yes,
you. You're going to have time. Dr. Forbes, your thoughts?
Yes, my thoughts. My thoughts have evolved over time, over the past many years. And I'm talking as a business owner who employs people and a company that is 38 years old. And from the point of view of a lecturer at the University of the West Indies. Quick story. 26 years ago, the University of the West Indies called me in a state of near panic. The lecturer who was to come from London was not coming. I had just come back to Jamaica, having just finished my master's degree in media matters, and they called me to head up the television program at Carrimack. Long story short is that they knew me from phase 3, and I did it. And that started my life and relationship with the University of the West Indies. So to tie that into what Omari said, as a business person and as a lecturer, the soft skills, and the person who presented on the screen also spoke about that. And we say the words sometimes and people don't know what we're talking about when we say soft skills. So I want to iterate a little bit of soft skills. The emotional intelligence, the fact that you're able to read the room, to read people, the way in which you carry yourself, your use of language. I mean, Omari said, oh my God, I don't have a piece of paper. I feel as if I'm not closed because I don't have a piece of paper. Omari, you're brilliant. I said to him, the old people have the pieces of paper. so the soft skills of, interpersonal relationship, how you get on in the office. For example, when I bring new members of staff on, I've started to take them through the office and I watch how they relate to people they've never met before and how relaxed they are, because in my field of work, you have to be, if not a full-blown extrovert, a little bit of an extrovert, because being an introvert, unless you're going to edit and be around your machine all day, if you have to be like Daniel, or wonderful production coordinator, Daniel Harris, you have to really like to be around people. So the soft skills, the habits, the personality, all of these are very important. And I make the point that the hard skills are important. So as interns, you need your certification. You need the CXC subjects, whether it's a degree or whatever, you need those. So the IQ, you need the critical thinking skills. But as business people and employers, we're looking at your soft skills, because at the end of the day, it is your soft skills that are really, the hard skills get your foot in the door, but the soft skills will keep you employed. So Mary, I want you to remember that. Wow. Smile. It don't take a thing off you.
I hope somebody's tweeting that. The soft skills will keep you employed. Mrs. Edmonds, over to you.
Thank you, Ruth. Thank you for having me. I think we're all on the same page here about the importance of soft skills. And I just want to put it in a little bit of context, because I think it's important for us grown-ups to remember that when we're talking about the transition from school to work, it can be a very challenging transition for a lot of students. It can be very scary, it can be intimidating, especially if the student has not had the opportunity of having an internship or has worked a part-time job for, a private sector company. It can be a very lonely place. The student leaves their supportive school environment where they have their friends, their teachers, their counselors, and they have to go into Some go into big companies, some go into smaller organizations, but they don't have their friends, they don't have the support. So I think we have to recognize that it can be a very challenging transition for many of us. And I think, us grown-ups sometimes forget that. And then I completely agree, the importance of the soft skills. I mean, our students are smart. They generally can do the job that they're hired for. But it is oftentimes the challenge is to reinforce the soft skills. And for me, the soft skills, apart from what Marcia mentioned, I think things like punctuality, the importance of showing up on time, because us Jamaicans aren't so good in that department a lot of times. Reliability, to say, if you're going to do this by 12 o'clock on Friday, you do it by 12 o'clock on Friday. It's not a school environment where extensions are just, automatic, not necessarily that they are, but so things like that, professionalism, generally speaking, communication skills, I think, as Marcia mentioned, some of the others. And I know that there are a lot of organizations that are focused on this. I know CCCJ has various programs in this area. FHI has been doing a lot of great work. And so I just want to take this opportunity to congratulate you and your team for the great work that you've been doing in this area.
Boy, well, thank you on behalf of the team. Yeah, they are excellent, and we have good partners. And there's a team in Jamaica, but there's also a team in our home office in Washington, D.C. And you heard from Kristen Brady earlier, and there's just a vast amount of people behind us. So thank you for that. And so we talked about the soft skills. Let's go back a little bit. Dr. Paul Wilson, from the institution side, can you walk us through what your program looks like? Karen just alluded to the fact that you more than likely have some of these programs. And you can correct me if I have the name wrong, but there is a practicum component. What is it, 240 hours? So describe that for us, how that works across the member colleges.
Okay, so thank you very much, Ruth. So the practicum, which is the final component, and that's a course, we are having discussions internally on a name change, restructuring of the program, because we recognize that our learners, they are treated differently in the workspace when they go on work experience. Okay. So a student from Montego Bay Community College may go to one of those resorts on the North Coast for work experience. Right. But a student from UTech would go to the same resort and they're on internship. They're doing the same thing, but they're treated differently. Really? Yes, they are. Mm-hmm. So we're looking at that and how we can improve on that. Mm-hmm. So the practicum is the final component of the experience from school to work experience. So during the course, whether it's the associate or the bachelor program, the students will be exposed to some of the soft skills that we're talking about, group work, and those are deliberate, all right? There is a course that is called entrepreneurship, I think it is. And the learners, they're required to create their own business, go through the process, register and make the product, whatever it is. So they go through that process. And then they go into the field for work experience. At the associate and the bachelor level, that's 240 hours. They are supervised by a lecturer at their institution. We spoke about punctuality, and so they're assigned a supervisor at the location, and those things are recorded. So they have to sign in like a regular worker. They conform to the ethos of that environment, the culture. So if it is 8 to 5, then they need to be there at 8. They leave at 5. If they're going to be absent, they're expected to reach out to the supervisor to indicate what is happening. So they're a part. So they're involved into the business. What we have found, though, is that some of our learners, they are not given the opportunity to show what they can do. And that may be because of experiences of the employer. So they will not put them in some key areas. So we have students who are doing their bachelor in, let's say, finance and accounts, right? They will not put them in a component which the organization will say is confidential. All right? So they will give them things to do that will not really enhance the knowledge component, because there are other components that they will learn. So we have that. We also have where our learners, they go out and they do not represent us as we would want them to represent us. So we do have that as well. So our review of this course is to make it more in line with workplace readiness. How do we get our students to be ready, not workplace, but to be ready for employment, whether they're going to create it or they're going to be employed, to include the soft skills, to include the knowledge. And as Dr. Forbes said earlier, you need the hard skills, you need the certification, right? That will get you inside, but it's really the soft skills that are going to keep you there. We are conscious that knowledge is at your fingertip now. So you can Google that. So we have to create opportunities for our learners to develop the critical thinking skills, right? To develop communication skills, to be active listeners, right? To know that you can take risk. That's a part of the employment sphere. But how do you do that? So we are looking at our course for work experience to include those things.
Okay. I'm definitely going to come back to you. You said a few things, and you also talked about seeing the need to rebrand the practicum, the work experience, right? So I have a few questions about that. And then you mentioned some of the gaps, even when they get into the workplace. I'm going to go to the other side now. And this is more for perhaps you, Karen, and definitely perhaps for you, Dr. Forbes, in terms of the employment. So whether you are employing someone or you're doing independent projects, what have you heard or what would you like to see? We already talked about some of the soft skills, but in hearing some of the gaps she talked about, what's your perspective? What's your take on that?
You mean in terms of what is needed for the students, or from what perspective?
Perspective from the employer side. So let's look at a scenario.
Yeah.
She just mentioned perhaps students not being able to do certain types of work. I understand the confidentiality part, but I can share that there have been students that have said to me, we're in the back of a room filing, or we're falling asleep in a lunchroom. Anybody else heard things like that? Yes, right? Okay. We've also heard from some employers, it's just too much work to manage an intern or to take in students.
Yes. Question, Ruth,
yes.
To say, because I've had two very recent examples,
yes.
And I'm not, I'll call Roshane's name. So FH 360 sent me Roshane Bartley. Roshane came passionate, eager. You had a structure.
Right.
Roshane has adhered to the structure in that every week he knows he's to submit a report. Every week, Sunday night or early Monday morning, Roshane's report is there. Roshane writes well. I can understand what he's saying. He's a great storyteller. And so, you know, Roshane already has a job offer.
Look at that, yeah.
So
congrats,
we know,
Roshane.
Yes, we know where he's going. We know where he'll fit in the organization. He's not going to have to do an internship because he has been with us for this period. He's great. Now compare that to, and I'm not calling this name, but I have a signed MOU with the University of the West Indies for 5 years to offer a paid internship. My paid intern came. My paid intern took up residence in the back of the office. Every single time I went around the back, there was my paid intern on the phone, scrolling. So I spoke to the paid intern once. I said, you need to get involved. Being involved with the telephone is not it. I spoke to my paid intern, and I'm emphasizing paid because I get NCU interns for 20 years unpaid, and they're fantastic. One of them who graduated from our program, Richard Forsyth, is one of our lead techs around there. Fantastic, Richard and Andrew. We got his brother years later. So this paid intern is there after the third time in 1 week saying you need to go and attach yourself to somebody, you know, because the staff know that the person is there. Eventually, at the end of the first, I said, no, we're going to part company. I will tell you that the university had called me in a state of near panic because they had called me 26 years ago saying, Dr. Forbes, we sent you the list of the interns, and the one you chose, that's not the one, Dr. Forbes. You're going to be in a problem, because I was in a problem. I said to the university, I chose that person because that person was the weakest of the ones you had sent me, and I wanted to give that person an opportunity.
Oh, wow.
Well, I had to cry defeat and move on, because I can't be paying you to sit down there. And I came back, and, you know, Monday morning this week, not Monday, Tuesday morning, in the telephone, seeing me around the back of it. So you must have passion. You must have some level of interest and wanting to learn something. This is a creative industry. You must have a curious mind. You can't come and want to sit around the back in your phone. So the mother called me to say what happened. I said, well, every day is in the phone scrolling. The mother said, well, you know, I spoke to that person about the in the phone scrolling all the time. I rest my case.
Okay.
Perspective of employers in general, if we're talking about internships, I think we have to distinguish between the large companies like the Grace Kennedys and the Sandals that have set programs for interns where the intern comes in, goes through an orientation, has a really structured program which has been well developed and repeated over and over again. It's a very different situation for a lot of the smaller private sector companies. I think you're kind of big. But for smaller companies, I think, you know, the goal is always to provide the student with an interesting educational experience. But a lot of times the smaller companies are under-resourced themselves, so while they want to take on interns, they want to provide a good experience, I think the biggest challenge for a small to medium private sector company is how can we absorb interns and provide them with a good educational experience while not, you know, as I think Dr. Powles mentioned, we can't expose them to everything. We want, you know, there's certain things that are proprietary to us, but we still want the student to come in and have a great experience. And it's really not as easy as it sounds. I've had interns, and it is honestly pretty challenging to make sure that they always have something interesting to do. They're not just sitting around filing. I've been an intern where I have just been sitting around filing. So it's really, you know, it does take a fair amount of planning, thinking, creativity on both parts. On the part of the intern, that they must have curiosity, they must have initiative, they must have drive, they must ask questions. But then on the employer side too, there has to be a willingness to make that happen.
Hold the thought, Dr. Forbes, hold the thought. I don't want Mario to lose his, and I just want to remind everyone to share your questions in the chat. I think we can do that via Zoom and via YouTube, so please, please, send in your questions. We want to hear your thoughts. We want to share with you and to respond and engage you while we're still going. So over to you, Marion, and then over to you, Dr.
And I actually have to really commend Dr. Forbes. I've been in a lot of internship where the most I do is filing. I really love to see entities that allow students to actually get that hands-on experience within the organization, because when you go on your filing is important. I know filing is important, but it's really great for especially creatives to get that hands-on experience within the industry. And I can say from the perspective of a student, that, you know, a lot of organizations, when they get interns, they don't really engage the students in different activities to help to further their knowledge base. So you go in an organization and they said, okay, we have a lot of filing. So when they usually get interns, one thing that I've always heard, that now have someone to get rid of the backlog of the different files. So I do commend organization, especially Phase 3, because Russian is actually my friend. So I do know that you guys really give students that opportunity. And I was actually listening to you earlier when you spoke about the different schools that you give the students from different universities and colleges that you actually take in. And it's really commendable to see that you have organizations that still have that passion for students to further develop themselves from the basis of where they are, because you have this theory, and, you know, like you said, we have to have that hard skill. But the soft skills are very vital. So the leadership, just being social. Sometimes you have to really be social. I'm an extrovert, as you said before, in different areas to really rub shoulders and network with different persons. So that was really my thought, because I didn't want to lose my chain of thought, because you really touched on something that I thought was very vital, and something that I wish to see from more employers when they take in interns, even paid or unpaid, just to get the students to learn more, to build on that knowledge, because you know, COVID happened, and a lot of the teaching was online. So a lot of persons didn't get that hands-on experience. So right now, internships are very important for students that are going into the creative industry. So that was really my point.
And I'll follow up on Omari and Karen, because it's not easy.
Yeah.
Getting interns in your organization, people think it's free labor. It is not easy, because many of them do not come with any real skills that you can immediately put to any real, let us say, use. If they're fast learners like Rasheen, they come in, they have a focus, you can get them into a sphere. Most of them, they come and they learn as they go. But if you haven't got a champion within the organization, I'm coming from a background of being head teacher daughter. My aunt who brought me up was a head teacher, principal of an all-age school in Irishtown. So I grew up learning, one, the value of education, but more importantly, the value of giving back. And so all of us were taught that you come, you are relatively privileged. We never had money, but we didn't know that. We thought we were fine. And you give back. And so this is the way that we operate, my son and I, Phase 3, that we are committed to the interns. We don't want the interns to come to Phase 3 and waste time. Right. We want them to come, and the staff members at Phase 3 are very good. They're very supportive. The interns come, you say, look, I'm going to ask you to let them shadow you for this time. Yes. Another one shadow you for, and there is some kind of order. And I want to big up NCU, because when the NCU interns come, they come with their form. And you know what they're there for. First day, you ask them to write out their goals and objectives. This one that I had to part company, first is write out your goals and objectives. Midweek, oh, I was too busy. I forgot about it. Busy doing what? Scrolling through the phone. Better she told me she forgot. But NCU, if you're going to ask me about an organization with a model for the interns, I would highly recommend NCU. They come to Phase 3, they visit us, they visit the interns, they have the forms, you fill out your form. By the time they finish texting you, have you submitted, you know, we need it by so and so. And so there is a structure. The interns understand the structure. We at Phase 3 understand the structure. And the staff understands this, because they have to fill out the forms when the interns are with them.
So you touched on something that I was about to get into, and that's why we're here, right? It's the conversation. There seems to be some missing links in terms of conversations between, well, now I will say employer and the school, but also that should include the student, right? And that's at the end of the program. I know you're looking at repositioning and rebranding the practicum, but perhaps earlier in their studies, right? So not just before they graduate. So it's the conversation that we need to tighten. How can we do that? How can we, let's give some clear examples of how we can do that. How can a school get an employer to listen? How could we get the successful modules? How could we repeat them, replicate them? What do you think could happen? And we can answer this question from the employer perspective or the school perspective, because perhaps some employers, they're tired, they don't want to open the door, they have other things, they're running businesses. And as Karen mentioned, they may be smaller companies, right? So let's talk about how we can have more meaningful conversations and some practical examples. And then I'm going to check in on some of the YouTube or Zoom questions and comments.
All right, so I want to just reinforce something that Dr. Forbes mentioned about the companies. They are investing a lot into the interns or the student, the learners who go there for work experience, as we would call it. And it is not just what they're given, the pay, or what we want, the stipend we're calling it, but it's your time, your resources. And I think that is something we have to constantly and consistently impart in our learners, that these companies that you're going to be doing your internship, your work experience, it is not only the pay that they are giving you or the stipend, but they are giving you, you have a supervisor there.
Right.
And that mentorship is going to be key, right? Because again, there are reports that some entities, the learners, the students, they're there on their own, no form of supervision. So mentorship is going to be key if we're going to make this successful. For us at the CCCJ, we try to get the employers, as many as possible, to be a part of what we're doing. Or restructuring of the curriculum, we draw on the resources of the employers. So we have some institutions, they would have provided some real good services to our member institutions, and those persons will serve on our various committees. We're reviewing a curriculum, then they serve as experts in that field. So we draw on that as well. Our member institutions would have guest lecturers, guest seminars, and utilize, co-opt the persons from the industry into those areas. We try to get our learners to recognize that you have to learn to learn, okay? You have to learn. We can just imagine what 2050, 2070 would look like, but we have to prepare for it.
Right.
And in doing that, you have to learn to learn. So you're going to go in the field and you have to be intentional. What is it you want to learn? What is it you're going to do? Do not just sit and wait on someone to give you something to do. You have to take the lead. And those are some of the social skills, I call them, that employers are looking for. And those are some of the things that we have to purposefully put in our curriculum so that our lecturers teach those. How are you going to learn to learn? All right?
I see. Let's take this comment. I think I don't need glasses, but it is very small. Harlan Miller, good afternoon to you too. Okay, so that person is saying, I do agree that our trainers need to acquire soft skills, not only for development, but also for their participation in the workforce. Thank you very much for that comment. And we're continuing the need for that conversation. And I don't want us to leave today without some of those practical examples. There might be teachers watching, placement officers, career officers. There might be employers. even people who are doing startups who need some assistance want to take on some of this and just get some tips. So we don't want to leave without the practical examples. So,
can I just reinforce what Dr. Paulson said?
Yes.
Because I wanted to make that point as well, that I think it's super important for the students to take the initiative.
Yeah.
When they're in
They
these
have a role.
situations.
They have a role.
If you don't want to just sit there filing, if you see somebody that looks interesting, go introduce yourself, go talk to them, do your research on the company, go and find out what the company is doing, what are their products, what are their services, what are they launching. I think in my experience, I've had lots of different types of interns. The ones that are the most successful, and this is for the students to really internalize, are the ones that take the initiative to research my business, to research what I'm doing, to come up with ideas. Well, why don't you do this? How about doing that? And I think that is a way that you really stand out as a student, get yourself a job, and really distinguish yourself and make the most of the opportunity that you've had. I think that we suffer a little bit here of, you know, being a little too reticent, a little too shy. We gotta just get up, take the initiative, and it doesn't matter, you know, you ask a silly question, it doesn't matter. Just go out there and,
you had a
and
point
ask
just
it.
now.
I want to tell a very quick story about Kareem Fisher. Kareem Fisher was a little boy who, I say, he's talked phase 3. He's a little KC, Kingston College student. From he was about 15, he started sending us emails that he wanted to come to phase 3. Well, eventually when he got to 18, we took Kareem as an intern. And I want to make the point about mentorship, because Laura MacDonald, one of our outstanding television producer directors, the only female television director in the CONCACAF family. And so Laura took Kareem almost as a son, and she mentored Kareem. And so when people come up for internship, this is a great way for you to get excellent mentors. Kareem left us, went to the USA, went to university. Laura tells me she's going up to Jersey to work in another couple of weeks. Who is going to pick her up from the airport? Kareem. We're doing some fest in another couple of weeks. Who is coming down to operate one of the stage cameras? Kareem. So I made the point about mentorship, employment, coming out of a passion and just wanting to get to where you want to go.
Yeah. So I think we could agree, based on what you're saying, is the transition starts before graduation, definitely. And it includes work-study combinations, right? It includes internships. So all these things can be stepping stones. The advanced program actually has Spark Days where we work with the school to get the students out. And what we're hoping is that these connections will continue, right, when the program ends. I see we have a question, or we have two questions. What support would host businesses need? I'm not so clear on that one, so if the person could elaborate a bit more. And then there's a question for Dr. Powell Wilson. I hear a lot of emphasis being placed on soft skills. Is there a way to ensure that this is not only captured in one specific course, very good, such as entrepreneurship, for example, but is considered from I'm not seeing the end, but I think we're getting the idea there, perhaps from the beginning.
Certainly. When we talk about soft skills, how do you interact with each other? The other courses from the beginning of your program would cater for that, or should cater for that. Your group dynamics. I know a number of persons, group work, no, I don't want to work in group, I'm only going to do all the work. But that is the start of the soft skills. How do you work with persons? This is your first time in the program, your first time in this institution, you're meeting persons for the first time. There you go. All right? We're going to have differences, yes, but how do we deal with those? Then we talk about dependability, reliability. Karen, right? Karen spoke about reliability earlier. If you're going to submit an item at 1 o'clock on Tuesday, that is it. If you can't, then say something. The same with your assignment, right? Your assignment is due at 12 o'clock on Tuesday, 12 a.m. Don't wait until 12:59 to say something is wrong or you can't. So you start that discussion from early. So those are the skills that in each course, they should be developed because the courses are so designed so that learners can enhance those skills.
So 2 questions. The first one, a follow-up for you. And the second one, the previous question, what support do host businesses need? I'm going to take a stab at trying to interpret that one as do you know what would a company need? Like, so we can delve more into that. You talked about structure before, right? So maybe we can give some examples of how to help a company who wants to take an intern. But back to what you were just saying in terms of that question, how do we go a little earlier, not just in the one specific course, but here's a question for you. How do you make that real? How do you measure that we are including group work, which is going to build soft skills? Is that something in the teacher's lesson plan? Is it in the outline? Is there a part of the assessment where the student knows this is an opportunity for you to work on those soft skills that are so crucial? So when we are assessing your punctuality, when we are assessing how you've worked together, maybe you do a peer review. Tell me about that. What's a concrete way to make sure it happens and is measured after?
All right. It is measured in different ways. Because of our structure, that measurement may not be standardized, but there are examples on how you can measure that. So for group assignments, there's a rubric. So each person in the group would be tasked with assessing each other, right? And that is another soft skill that is coming out there because you need to say it as it is, right? In a respectable manner. But if you're not pulling your weight, then you need to know. And you would need to know before the submission of this document. So if we're in a group, then we're working towards something. If you're not coming, what do I do? Right? So the rubric would address that.
And the students know, so there's transparency
where
the students know they are preparing for this.
They would know from day one. And I know also more so in the online space now, for classes, there is a rubric for discussions in class, how you interact with your classmates, that sort of thing in the online space. So we provide general guidelines, and our member institutions would be more specific. But, however, we are committed to reviewing what we have and see how much more we can provide so that there's a little more standardization across the board.
Okay, so I was actually going to say I definitely need to hear more from Mario. You're ready to go. Go ahead.
So basically to add on what Dr. Paul was saying, when I was in several courses, we had a way of actually measuring it through journaling. So, and it's a few courses. So majority of my courses, it's group work. About 90% is group work. So it is really geared to actually build our soft skills and how we basically work along with persons, and then the groups change. So we'll have to interact with different persons in our program. So one way of actually getting all of that, capturing all of that, is through journaling. And it is not just to catch what's in class, but when we have meetings outside of class, who takes the notes, how was the discussion, basically to speak about each person. So basically to see where they can actually improve on different aspects. So if this meeting, we see one person, they're not able to, present on something, we work alongside each other to help to build these soft skills. So I really, group work, it wasn't my favorite, I can say for sure, but it actually helped me to better understand my classmates, how to actually improve on their soft skills. So I can say that soft skill is developed in and out of class.
And you're showing it here, by the way. I just want you to know. Let's take it back to the earlier question in terms of what businesses perhaps need. Let's start with you, Dr. Forbes. Yeah, what do businesses, it sounded like what support do businesses need? So if there were a repository of tools or things that can help a business, maybe something customized, because again, Karen did talk about the different sizes of businesses, right? What are some of the support areas that, say, a business would need to engage students?
You know, I've been thinking about the PSOJ and whether there's a role for some kind of collaboration with the PSOJ and tertiary institutions.
Yes.
Not just one university, but for the universities to be represented and to come up with this kind of template as to how working through a body.
Yeah.
They have 3 female vice presidents at the PSOJ now, and they're great. Jackie Sharp, Mariam Robinson, and Eva Lewis. They're great. These are women who get things done. And I'm throwing it out to you. Yes, Ruth. To say that this is something that FHI 360 could look at to see how you can partner with the PSOJ and develop something even through Doc Hair to come up with a template as to how, if a business were to take in an intern, what are some of the best practices? The structure is critical.
Yes.
The relationship between the business and the institution is critical. I keep saying NCU because UE is the opposite. I get the UE interns, I never hear from UE again. I have to be saying, so where did the interns go? What lives have they had?
Yes.
Because I don't see them, I don't hear anything. So that kind of, and it's my alma mater. It's where I lecture. It's where I know best. But there's this yawning gap.
Chasm.
Oh God, yes.
So thank you for that opportunity to talk about what FHI 360 is doing with USAID support. So let me step back a little bit. We know Advance is a workforce development program. And if the audience has heard us touch on different industries, for example, the creative industries or the wellness industry, it's because we zeroed in on wellness tourism, agribusiness, and creative industries based on labor market information, labor market intelligence. These were 3 of the industries in Jamaica that were poised to need more employees and poised for growth. Just with a plethora of the data that we had, we zeroed in on those. So just for the audience, that's why you'll hear some specifics about industry. But in general, we've had the ability to develop, for example, an internship toolkit. And that's something that we're actually working with the Council of Community Colleges, and soon, coming up in June, we're going to work with member colleges to see how we can institutionalize that toolkit and customize it for their school and the programs that they offer. And a part of that toolkit also includes how to engage the employer, how to have the first conversation. So even beyond the program, we're trying to leave tools with our partners or help to work with our partners to co-design some of these tools so that we can have this school to work transition that we've been talking about. And perhaps some of those things will definitely help an employer regardless of scale, right? I'll tell you, you talk about structure and the form. Karen, I think you've taken one of our interns as well. So you've seen a simple sheet, right, that says these are the areas that you're going to be assessed on or you should be working on. Dr. Forbes, you mentioned Rashane's report. So sometimes it is as simple as looking at, as giving the employer, here are the areas that we want the student to work on. Can you work with them in these areas? Can you initial this? Sometimes we think it's really too simple, but it's very helpful, right? That's one less thing a supervisor has to do. Supervisor doesn't have to come up with the things. So that's some of the activities we're trying to work on. Christine Brady mentioned some of the activities, not only in Jamaica, but in other countries as well. So we know school to work transition has to start before graduation. It's the conversations on their careers. It's the internships. It's the visiting for a day. I think you, Dr. Forbes, would allow them to come to phase 3 and walk through the company.
26 years ago when the university called me to lecture, the first thing I did, Lisa Hanna was in that first class, and Dr. Hume Johnson. And I arranged with the industry entities, CPTC, JBC TV at the time, and we organized tours. And my son came as a driver, and I drove, so there are two cars, and we took the students to the various institutions and toured, including the Beaner Company.
Right.
It was fantastic. That's something they need to see, if you're going to be in media, to see where these places are, what they look like.
Right. So you touched on the PSOJ, the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica. And that's great, because one of my questions was about alliances. What are some of the alliances that we need? Who are some of the other players? Omaria, you may know of some too. Any of the associations? Who do we need to bring to the table to have these conversations? We have the school, the student, who else? Karen, you want to try?
Well, I was just going to say, I was actually on the membership committee of the PSOJ, and I think that they are perfectly placed to be a bridge between the schools and the private sector, because a lot of times the schools may not have the entree into the companies. They may not feel comfortable just calling a company out of the blue, and the PSOJ, that is what they're there for. That's what one of the objectives of the Member Services Committee was to offer these types of services to their members. So it could be something that would fit very well into the mandate of the PSOJ to come up with a template for companies. You want an intern? Here is a one-pager on potential activities, potential projects, potential tasks that your intern can do, because as I mentioned earlier, a lot of times that's the problem. The companies don't know where the students would fit in given their background. So I think PSOJ and other private sector organizations as well. And I think we can also include public sector organizations. I mean, the private sector is not the only employment organizations that are out there. There's public sector, maybe even some of the tertiary institutions as well. So I think that, that would make a lot of sense to think about it a little bit more broadly in terms of partnership alliances.
Let's check in with our YouTube audience and our Zoom audience. Let's see. Oh, I see a comment. I like the idea of journaling that gives the student the opportunity to be reflective, which I believe is what is critical to the development of soft skills. Giving students a grade, read soft skills, is a little troubling for me. Any thoughts on that, teacher?
I'll go back to what Dr. Forbes said. The hard skills gives a foot in. But the soft skills is what really
will keep you employed.
And in the soft skills, that's what determines the A from the A plus. Right? So it's additional marks. Well, for us, it's additional marks that we're giving the students.
And if people want to learn more about what we're doing with you here, talking about these soft skills and the employability skills, we actually have a component focusing on positive youth development, where we're working with teachers in training and existing teachers at the higher education level now, where we will hopefully be able to do some more work with the secondary level, but to really help them to add more structure to this. I mentioned the structure before, looking at self and certainly looking at how they include these elements in their work. So we're working hard on that. And we are also working with the council, for example, and our other higher education partners on building those alliances that you mentioned. So if the doors are open, we're happy to walk through them. So I'm going to go back to you, Omario. What's your dream internship?
So for me, my dream internship.
Or what would it look like? Like, what would the characteristics be?
Well, I'm actually interning right now at the SMC group. And it's actually something that I've grown to love. They actually tackle all the aspects that I would have learned in my academic life. So like sound production, lighting, designs, all of that is actually something that is used in that internship. And my dream internship is actually it's really simple. It allows me to act on my passion and act on all the skills that I've garnered over my years in school. Something that I've always
something that I've always wanted is to actually be able to use the skills that I've learned in school. I don't want to be, I have my degree, my master's, and be working in a different area. So this internship that I'm doing right now is actually touching base with everything that I've learned. There is a bridge in the soft skill, and it's actually helping me get a better understanding of the creative arena. So right now, components is just having that connection with the practical, with the theory. Just having that connection is very important to me. Like I said, COVID has made it a bit difficult to do a lot of practical. So just getting that practical, hands-on thing, getting to network with different entities, and basically getting to use my skills to drive my passion. That's definitely my ideal views on the internship.
An ideal internship.
Yeah.
I want us to talk about data in two places. So think about it a bit, and I'll take this Zoom question. How are we using data to ensure we continue to train in the areas, in the industries that need the employer? So training for demand, not supply, which would then speak to how you guide the student, how you recruit, how you find them, and once they're in, how you take them to that path in terms of the labor bridging activities that we've talked about before, but also data in terms of graduates. Are we tracking them? Do we know where they go? For the practicum, are they left on their own to just fend for themselves, or is there that tight structure with their supervisor saying, okay, this is where you could be placed, this is a pool of companies? So it's the data to confirm what we're training them in, because that's a whole path of the path to employability, right? And the data to show this place, this many students got placed, or in 6 months, this many students were doing X or Y. So consider that. I'd like us to talk about that before we wrap up, for sure. Let's have a look at this question. Very useful point so far. How can we promote inclusivity in internships or employment opportunities for students with disabilities? That's a very good question. Would you want to tackle this one first and we go back to the data, or what would you prefer? You want to tackle this one? Let's tackle this one. Anybody want to try that? How do we consider that? And that's very important because inclusion is critical, and groups with special needs get left out all the time.
Well, as someone who lived with a husband for nearly 20 years, a husband who was blind for nearly 20 years before he passed, the whole thing of disabilities resonate very loudly with me. He was blind, but it did not stop him from being in the industry and from working. However, I can see where some disabilities, for example, if you're blind, you're not going to be a videographer. You could be an editor, because Patrick Lafayette, who is blind, spent time trying to engage with my husband about how he could use the computer. So things that are computer related and can be voice simulated, those kinds of jobs in the industry, I can see that persons with those kinds of disability, partial or full blindness, could function. There are other disabilities that might be more challenging, and the whole thing of access. For example, if you haven't got a leg, and accessing certain areas, because the buildings are not built, and the media houses represent Jamaica. We're not built to facilitate certain things. But I leave it to Doc, because Doc might actually have students with disability that you're trying to work with.
So the students with disabilities, the institution would at all times try to match that student with an entity that will provide the support that the student needs. So if the student is in an area that doesn't, depending on the disability, right? Depending on the disability, the lecturer, it's really a lecturer. The institution would try to work with the organization to ensure that the students would maximize his or her, the student would maximize his or her opportunity. Just as what we do in our institutions when we have these students with disability, whatever it is. So I know that is there.
And perhaps that's another conversation on
Disability,
its,
yes.
on its own, right?
Yes. Just a second, Ruth. Again, because we have to work with the organization, it may take a longer time to place that student, right? So there are some challenges there.
Right.
It may mean that the students will have to go a little further. So additional costs there for transportation. So we have all those things that we have to look at.
There's a follow-up question for you, and I don't want us to lose the data question. Dr. Foyle-Wilson, do you think we need to have a 2-credit course? This is very specific. A 2-credit course in employability skills for all college students, instead of community college students, or should it be infused in the respective courses? You have that answer?
Right, infused in the respective courses. They're going to be doing at least 20 courses. So they will have the opportunity to learn, experience, refresh employability skills. In a 2-credit course, at the end of the course, that is it. So I would say infuse in all the courses.
Okay, okay. Let's talk about the data, and then I'm gonna come back to this YouTube question, and I'm inviting you all to comment on it. So, are we using data? So it's at the beginning in terms of training for demand, and how are we catching?
Very facetious. Because you know that throughout the Caribbean region, we do not collect data. We know this. There is empirical evidence to say that we're terrible at collecting data. And when we do collect, it is not disaggregated in a way that is useful.
Yes.
So that's my contribution.
Anybody else?
Well, I just want to say that I think that there are some efforts being made
somewhere
in the country. I think some of these organizations that we mentioned earlier are trying to collect data. Some of the bigger companies, some of the government agencies, maybe it is a matter of dissemination of the information and maybe putting together the data in a way that is easily consumable and relevant to what is needed, because there are lots of people out there collecting information, but I think it's maybe, it's not being analyzed, it's not being consumed.
Sometimes it's the level, sometimes it doesn't get down to certain sector levels.
And it's not maybe relevant to the areas that need it or to the people that need it.
So that's the industry side, that's at the beginning, that chain. What about when they have finished their studies? Do you know who is tracking, or what department? Is there a department that is tracking? Dr. Forbes is shaking her head. Who is paying attention to the graduates? Who knows where they are?
I asked Karamak about the 2 graduates who came to phase 3. I said, where are they? What are they doing? They had not true. They had not the foggiest idea for one. They had a little bit of foggy idea for the other. They said, I think she's applying to do her master's to go somewhere. But they don't track. I mean, the university can barely keep up with the graduates. It's something that we have discussions about, the Alumni Association, and how badly we do, because the university don't really embrace us in a way that we feel we want to continue to be a part.
It is,
what do you say,
it is a research culture that we'll have to develop, and not just develop, but utilize. I think we have made strides. In recent times, the government gave the tertiary institutions a position on their establishment called research officer. And I know certainly from the CCCJ that came out of our efforts to do the tracer study. Where are our graduates? Having completed 2 or 4 years, what are they doing? And the CCCJ Council, very ambitious. Our last strategic plan, we had on it to do a tracer study. Our graduates must be employed after 6 months of completing their studies. We want to know that. We just got a research officer, so that's not done as yet. But we are making strides in that area. For our courses, how do we determine the programs to be developed and the programs that are offered? Community college was really designed to address the needs of the community, right? So our member institutions would do their feasibility study based on what is happening, the industry in the community that they serve, what is happening there, and they would offer courses, they would offer programs there. So you will find that there are programs that are offered at one community college that is just not offered in another community college, and that's because of the community. We rely on the data coming out of the Ministry of Labor and Social Services, and also from Hartrust, NTA, NSTA, to do that. So we depend a lot on the data to determine the courses that are developed and those that are made available for member institutions.
Mario, do you have any ideas on what a school could do in terms of graduate tracking?
Okay, for graduate tracking, this would be, wow, it would be a large task because one, I think you would need a whole department in regards to that. You would have to work with the Alumni Association to really keep track on everyone because, you know, some colleges, some universities, you know, you have 1,000 persons leaving, 3,000, 5,000 persons leaving, and just to keep track of all 5,000, it would be a bit difficult. So I think when we work alongside the Alumni Association, I think that's one way you can, you know, try to capture at least, you know, a percentage of that data. And for getting the data for the different programs, I can say that even my program is an example of that. The EDPT program, it's Entertainment Design, Production and Technology. I'm getting more students involved in that industry. So we will learn hands-on lighting, audio productions, the scenic design, stage designs, all of that in one. And we also learn other things as well as, you know, construction, to know the land, the layout of the land, to know if a stage can be placed there. We learn how to develop props and even, you know, furnitures, you know, to be placed on stage. So I can say that there are efforts being made in collecting data for the demand, but as Dr. Forbes had said before, you know, some levels where the data would be collected is you know, is a bit foggy. So I think we have to work better on collecting data to tackle this issue, and for the alumni thing, like I said before, it would be a good start to actually, you know, catch that. But in regards to like the industry, keeping a track of their interns, that would be quite difficult.
Very hard. But not impossible. But not impossible.
It's not impossible because they get interns every year. Every year throughout the years. So just to have a database of all of that, no, would be a bit difficult. And I would imagine it would be a bit difficult for them. So yeah.
We have another soft skills. We're going to have a whole other conversation just about soft skills. This question is about, is enough emphasis placed on these soft skills in our training institutions? So we've all talked about them, but I guess they're putting you on the spot, Dr. Powell Wilson. It might be you. What do you think?
Efforts are being made to include soft skills in the curriculum. Some persons will refer to it as the hidden curriculum. Can we do more? Certainly, certainly. So yes, there is a need for us to include more emphasis or to place more emphasis on soft skills in our institutions.
Okay.
And it's not just for, in some courses, it has to be a holistic thing.
Yes.
So it has to be every step of the way that these skills are demonstrated. So faculty demonstrate the skills, students demonstrate the skills, administration. So it has to be a system-wide solution.
Yes.
For the wellness tourism course and the wellness tourism curriculum, which I designed, I think that in designing it and working with the CCCJ, there was a great emphasis placed on infusing into the curriculum soft skills. And I mean, clearly, if you're going to work in tourism, you have to like people. You have to be fairly extroverted unless you're going to work in the accounting department. But the soft skills is, to be successful in tourism, soft skills are absolutely basic. You have to know how to interact with people. As Marcia says, you need to know how to read people's energy. Customer service is huge. You can't be afraid of talking to people. So I just want to say, as far as I'm concerned, certainly the wellness tourism program does place a lot of emphasis on the soft skills, a lot of visiting different locations, doing presentations, oral presentations, things like that were definitely included.
I don't want us to end.
I know.
And I don't mention the word ethics. Because this is an area that everybody thinks it's passé. Nobody wants to hear about values and honesty and morals and doing the right thing. Nobody wants to hear that. And in fact, because I think it is so important, I lecture the master's level students. And I moved ethics from the second to last lecture in the course to virtually the second lecture. Because with the group work, the university has problems with cheating. Everybody knows that. Not just the university. And the university has a lot now, especially with online. You don't know who you are lecturing to. That's the gospel. They come up, they have a shadow, or if you're very lucky, they have an avatar. And if you are very lucky, they'll turn on the cameras and you'll actually see who you're lecturing to. And so included, Doc, among the soft skills, we need to talk a lot more about ethical principles and honesty and integrity, because I know Jamaica seems to be look like we drop off the edge sometimes, but we're on a very slippery slope where people don't value honesty and integrity anymore. So if they can cheat their way into a grade, that seems like, oh, you're stupid, you're actually studying? No, I can get my grade another way. So I'm putting that on the table.
I have been getting our great producer, great production team has been giving me the wrap-up signal for a while now. I want to thank you so much to this panel. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We curated it with a lot of intention, and you've added such value. And I hope that other questions will come in, because we will be paying attention and looking out for those. And we definitely want you to check out the advanced program website. That has a lot more on the program. You'll see the higher education partners we're working with. You will see the industries that we focused on. And you'll see how we tried our best to work with our school partners to help the students to be ready for work in meaningful areas and make meaningful conversations. And you have just also even cemented even more so why you are a part of the program family. So at this point, we're going to throw back to our host, Kimberly. Thank you very much. Over to you, Kimberly.
Wow, such an informative discussion. Thank you to our moderator and panelists. I hope all your questions were answered. We have come to the end of the Advances Third Learning Forum. To close, I would like to share 3 facts with you about Advance. Advance trains faculty and staff in subject-specific content so they can equip students with skills needed to excel in the workplace. Advance is supporting some of its partner institutions with converting some of their face-to-face courses to online courses. Advance has granted over 200 scholarships to disadvantaged youth. Remember to visit their website and follow them on social media to learn more about the Advance program. For updates and announcements as well, Also, the program Student Employability Guide can be found on their website at www.advancedprogram.org. It was a pleasure being your host today. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, my name is David Morris. I'm an animator as well as an illustrator. I'm a proud past student of Vocational Training Development Institute, also known as VTDI, and I am an advanced beneficiary as well. A little bit about me. I started drawing at the end of high school, completely self-taught. I mostly specialize in cartoon and anime style drawings, maybe a little bit of Naruto, some Dragon Ball Z. After high school, I went on to Garmex, where I did level 2 animation. So while I applied for the scholarship, at the moment I was currently doing my level 2 animation at Garmex. And I decided, need to take this higher. Can't just stay with this one piece of paper. You gotta acquire more papers so you can get better jobs. And it was through my mother, who constantly scours social media, and she saw the scholarship being offered through USAID for me to be able to continue animation at VTDI. And she's just like, hey, this is level 3 animation, you already have level 2, it's at VTDI, the advanced program covers everything for you. And she's just like, try out for it. I was just like, Mommy, I don't think I'm qualified. But then she was just like, no, you're definitely qualified. You have to go through for this. I know you got this. So I was there one day in class at Garmex, and then we were there. I got a phone call. I stepped outside on the phone. Oh, I was shortlisted for the advanced scholarship to do animation up at VTDI. I myself was quite shocked. I couldn't really believe it. I don't understand how I kept my composure on the phone. Then later when I went home, I was just like, oh my God, Mommy, you won't believe this. Yeah, I went through. I got a scholarship. I got shortlisted for it. And she's just like, did you really expect any less of yourself? And make a long story short, I went through the following week, did the interview for the scholarship. Lo and behold, I did get it. And then afterwards, me and my mother, we went and we got milkshakes to celebrate the occasion. What the scholarship meant for me and my family, obviously, financial stability. Because before, when you're going off to college or anything and you're thinking about those prices per term, those term prices are very deadly and very scary. So thankfully with the scholarship provided by advanced program funded through USAID, those 2 years at VTDI went by so smoothly. For me, personally, I was jumping from level 2 animation straight to level 3, just a natural progression. That lovely associate's degree in animation from VTDI itself, I am now in a better position locally and quite possibly internationally, because you never know what could happen to get a job in the animation industry. The animation program at VTDI, it was very well-rounded. It covered a lot of topics that I would definitely need to become a better animator. We did courses such as 2D animation, 3D modeling, design principle, color theory, storyboarding, and a bit of script writing in the end. Despite the challenges, it was still very much enjoyable. And I will say that script writing was my favorite because it gave me a little break from the constant drawing. In addition to the scholarship, I also received a lot of support from Advance in other areas such as career development. I received invitations to webinars that contain a lot of information that I can benefit from. One such webinar that I can recall quite easily is a webinar in February with presenter Miss Aisha Jones. She spoke of entrepreneurship and freelancing, and one such thing that really stood out to me was networking that she spoke about. And she said it was of utmost importance to build a network of people who are within your local industry, and I really took that to heart. I finished my time at VTDI September 2020, and as that was in the middle of a pandemic, jobs weren't exactly the easiest thing to come by. Luckily, I was able to get a few short-term freelance jobs online, mostly with international clients, but it wasn't anything really steady. January 26, 2021. Important for two reasons. One was my grandfather's birthday. Two, I got a call from an international client with my first big job. She had gotten my contact number through word of mouth, I think possibly through one of my lecturers. And she's a Jamaican, but she was looking for local artists to work on her project, which is children's books. I was only supposed to do one book, but then because she liked my art style, I got a larger contract. So I am now working on 5 books. I've already completed 4. I'm grateful for the journey and to be a beneficiary of the advanced program funded by USAID because, well, I've finally made it. I'm an animator.